Hey guys, Josh here in New York City, still traveling, don't have my bass, I'm not filming in HD, etc. So you'll just have to look at my face at a lower resolution, man. Today is a music philosophy vid, and it's about who's the best bass player. I like Victor Wooten. No, Victor Wooten sucks. Like Flea and Les Claypool are like the best. No, you guys are crazy. Like Marcus Miller, man. Said every YouTube comment thread ever. The reason I want to talk about it is because the whole notion of somebody being the best bass player is completely ass backwards, and it doesn't make any sense, and there are no objective criteria on which to base these claims about who's the best. So therefore, there's no sense in it, and I'm sure at least a few of you watching have done this before, tried to figure out who's the best, or even in your own lives tried to figure out if you're better than someone else, like, oh, I could play better than him, or whatever. Basically, the issue is trying to make absolute linear assessments of badness to goodness, and like you're on this linear spectrum of how good of a bass player you are. When in reality, no such linearness, that's not a word. Anyway, you know what I mean. It's not linear. How you play music is non-linear. Because if you're saying some bass playing is bad and some bass playing is good, you have to establish what those things actually mean. And most people who do that don't do any such thing. So what that leaves us with is that it's completely meaningless to say, oh, Les Claypool's better than Flea, and he's better than Victor Wooten, but Victor Wooten's better than Stanley Clarke. It doesn't mean anything. It's just what you like more or less. And that doesn't mean it's good or bad. It just means you like it or you don't like it, and that's fine, because you're allowed to have your own preferences. But then to say that your preferences are somehow determining the ontology of reality, it's insane. Another thing to consider is if say you're Victor Wooten or Marcus Miller or Flea or Les Claypool, any of these other bass players that people bring up in these conversations, do you really think those guys like wake up in the morning and think, oh, I wish I was as good as Stanley Clarke or whatever? The whole point of playing music is to express yourself. Maybe not the whole point, but that's at least part of it. Maybe another part of it is to affect other people in some way that you feel is important, whether it's to help save the world or just help people have a good time out in a nightclub or something. The point of music is not to be better at it than other musicians. It's not like a competitive sport. There's no competition built into music. There's certainly competition built into the music industry, and that sucks in a lot of ways. But I'm just talking about actual music and actual bass playing as it relates to the sounds that we hear and enjoy. Dudes and chicks who are at the top of, the bass mountain that we all know their names and we love their playing, they don't sit around thinking about who's the best, because when you reach a certain level of musical development, and you don't have to be, the god of bass to reach this level, you realize that it doesn't matter what other people think of your playing, and it doesn't even matter what you think of your playing. What matters is whether you're having fun playing the instrument, how well you feel you express yourself, your ability to communicate with other musicians, your general personal development, because you can't play music if you're so messed up on drugs and psychological issues that you can't get off your couch. Those are the things that matter, and who's the best is just completely arbitrary. So, if you're one of these presumably teenage boys who leaves comments and YouTube videos about, they'll like go to a video of Stu Hamm playing a solo and be like, oh, this guy isn't anything special, what about Les Claypool? And then, another conversation starts. It's like you can infinitely argue if you don't define your terms. So one guy's saying, this guy's good, or he's the best, and another guy's saying, this other guy's the best. If you never define best, you'll never resolve your dispute. And the problem in this case is that you can't define best, because, to wrap up my other point, music is not linear. There's not bad music getting better, 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 all the way to the best music. It's not like at the bottom end is whatever, I don't want to name any names because they would just expose my subjective preferences, which are, I'm free to have them, but I don't want to impose them on people. The validity of music is non-linear. You can't compare the Sex Pistols to Beethoven. You can't compare Beethoven to Joni Mitchell. You can't compare Joni Mitchell to Anthrax. They're not all attempting to reach the same peak of development on a linear scale. Music does lots of different things. We need songs to listen to when we're pissed off. We need songs to listen to after a breakup. We need songs to listen to inspire us to go out into the world and create positive change. We need tons of kinds of songs. And therefore we need tons of kinds of bass players, and therefore there is no linear metric for how good of a bass player someone is. Now, all of this is not to say that you shouldn't ever take feedback on your playing. Just, well, if bass playing's non-linear, then I should just be able to go and everyone should like it, because how can we establish any criteria for evaluating music? Well, obviously some music gets more acclaim than other music. Some music hits people more meaningfully than other music. But to my knowledge so far, no objective criteria exists to say what's best. Maybe someday we'll know more about the geometry of sound and sacred music, and we'll find, these certain arrangements of frequencies are more harmonious to the unfolding of life or something. But to my knowledge, that's not a science at this point. So basically what we're left with is how music hits us, and that could change depending on, what we think about the artist. You listen to Nirvana. If you've never heard of Nirvana and you just hear it, it's going to hit you differently than if you know that Kurt Cobain was like a drug addict who killed himself. I mean, there's lots of factors that affect your enjoyment of music besides even the sounds of it. One day you might love the Foo Fighters, the next day you might hate the Foo Fighters just because of how you're feeling. And that's all cool to do. I'm not saying you shouldn't have preferences. Maybe you should sort of tease the edges of those preferences and see like, well, what if I try listening to Hank Williams and see what I think? But you're free to have your preferences, but I think it's important to understand that since we don't have objective criteria, all we can really assess music with is how does it hit me? What do I think of when I listen to it? How do I feel when I listen to it? Stuff like that that's really provable because it's in your own experience. That guy's good, that statement isn't part of your experience. That's your assessment of your experience. Like, you're enjoying it, you feel all happy and bubbly when you hear it, you think about how cool it is that he's able to do that on his instrument, and then you make an assessment based on that direct experience. Oh, he's good. But that assessment is just a reflection of your own experience. So, unfortunately, in music, we do not have objective criteria, but maybe that's not that unfortunate. It's not linear. Music serves many functions. So next time you feel tempted to say, who's the best bass player, just think about this video and how much sense it made to you. And if you have any thoughts on the matter, I'd love to hear them in the comments below. Thank you guys for watching another delightful video in the world of Josh Fosgreen. And I'll be back at you next week with another bass lesson with my bass in my hands, and I will talk to you then.